We think of film as a visual medium, and therefore we, as an audience, can often miss how much of the production, how much is communicated exactly through sound. Sound is used for a multitude of reasons. It can emphasise anything of importance, be it on screen or off screen. We can use it to drive a narrative or elicit an emotional response. Sound can be used to lift up an audience or even bring them to tears. But first we have to consider how those that are producing film and media, how they are moved to make the decisions they do with regards to sound. I asked Scott Tizik of Shred TV how he approaches making media.
This is my camera. It is a Lumix camera, Panasonic Lumix GH7. It's got a nice fold out, so you can set up your composition of the photo whilst being in front of the camera. Very good. I've used it on a number of projects so far. Handily, it comes with a attachable shotgun mic, which perfectly slides on the top and then plugs into the side. Just give you a demonstration of that. I use this quite a lot when I'm doing video interviews, because in a crowded outdoor area where I used to do interviews, there'd be a lot of people chatting, there'd be people smoking, like the sound of like bands testing the equipment. So, say for example I was going to interview you in a big area, the shotgun would just pick up only your voice, or most clearly your voice, which is important when you're focusing on a subject with a video. You want to make sure you're only picking up the sound of those people, which is a given really. So I use a shotgun mic for quite a lot of stuff. If not, as I found out recently, in a busy crowded area like a fun fair where you've got all sorts of noise bouncing off all sorts of buildings and music and people like shouting and commentating on the rides, you've got all these different frequencies. I found the best mic was a handheld, because I could give it to my subject and they would talk directly into it, and being the loudest thing around, they would literally just be the clearest thing around.
The concept of immersion is often related to game sound, especially with advances in binaural sound and surround sound. It's just sort of swayed that way. However, it cannot be discounted for use within cinema, because the aim of the cinematic experience is to immerse an audience and pull them into the narrative. Now, in a technical sense, immersion would relate to depth within the audio and creating that world of sound that just fully pulls you in and keeps you there. However, for the purposes of cinema and for this documentary, we're referring to immersion as the illusion within cinema. Storytellers have been trying to immerse audiences in their stories for millennia, and that goes right across the board, from trap drummers in the silent era producing sound there and then for the film, to the likes of Spielberg and Walter Murch producing epic soundtracks for their productions. The illusion is still there, that want to transport us into a world that we as a consumer would otherwise have no reason to be there, we'd have no place. They create a depth and a drive that audiences want to be included in, they want to be on board. I suppose a more apt word for this would sort of be engagement and an engaging sound. But it doesn't as a word, it doesn't really portray the depth that, for me, the word immersion would create.
I would say the Howl's Moving Castle has some really great audio. There's a bit where she travels almost back in time, and you can hear like all these stars falling and everything, and it's really, there's like a really nice ambience to it, and it all gets pulled back and warped as she like jumps back out into the real world. That Japanese style of silence and pulling back I do prefer, especially when you think about, you know, the loudness with like animation is mainly associated with like, obviously there's Disney, but then there's all kinds of kids cartoons and stuff like that, and it's just like constant sound, but I think it's nice to see it.
I think the soundtrack, because I kind of like editing to the beat of music. So how Edgar Wright made the intro of Baby Driver subliminally to a beat, and he made it, you know, all the cuts on like a metronome kind of like sort of style beat all the way through. I think it sort of has a huge sort of bearing.
The most important part of a soundscape, to me as an animator, would probably be the sounds that drive the story more than anything.
Hey!
A lot of time there'll be like voices and dialogue which will tell the story that you don't necessarily want to show, or you'll hear sounds off screen and things like that that, you know, direct the attention and tell the story in their own way.
And our latest edition, Ginormica.
General, continue.
Obviously, I think ambience and background sounds and creating a setting is really important as well, because otherwise it just sounds bland and everything, and you constantly need a sort of rhythm within your piece anyway, and the sound is really important for forming that. But personally, I think it is those sounds that, you know, drive the animation. So say somebody drops something and you hear something smash or something like that, you might not necessarily see that on the screen, see it happening, but you can tell from the sounds what is going on.
With all this being said, and the research that has gone into this project, I present my attempts at sound for cinema with the opening prologue to Far Gone, a film by Leonard Waters.